You have probably heard the story. Two gods, a brother and a sister, the sun and the moon. They fight for the sky, and when it is over, the moon carries a wound in one eye, which is why her light is dimmer than his. It sounds ancient. It sounds like something whispered around fires 1,000 years ago. I want to show you the day it was actually written down. And the year is going to surprise you. Let me start with what we can actually stand on. In 1589, a Spanish friar named Plasencia sat down to describe the religion of the Tagalog people around Manila. His account is the earliest systematic record we have. And here is what he wrote. The Tagalogs venerated the sun for its brilliance, and they venerated the moon, buwan, especially the new moon. That is it. The sun was bright and worthy of respect. The moon, and particularly the thin new moon, drew reverence. There is no sibling war in Plasencia. There is no Mayari. There is no Apolaki. There is no blinded eye. A year later, around 1590, we get the Boxer Codex, which lists Tagalog spirits, the Ni To, by name. It names Bathala, it names Lakapati, it names Hike. It does not contain a sun god versus moon goddess war either. So the earliest record gives us something quieter than a myth. It gives us a world organized around Ni To, ancestral spirits and nature spirits, where the sky was full of bright, beautiful things worth honoring, but not a family drama with a caste list. The moon was not a character with a name and a grievance. The moon was the moon, luminous, changing, and reverenced most when it was newly born in the sky. Hold on to that, because everything the internet tells you about Apolaki and Mayari sits on top of that thin, quiet record, and most of it was added much, much later. When a story looks this complete, with motives, dialogue, and a moral, that completeness itself is a clue. The messy early record almost never looks that neat. Neatness is usually the fingerprint of a later hand. And there is a second thing I need you to hold on to. There is no single Filipino version of this story. That is the biggest mistake I see repeated. The Philippines is home to many distinct peoples with distinct languages, and the sun and moon tale changes completely depending on whose it is. Let me walk you through 3 of them because the differences are the whole point. First, the Kapampangan version, the people of Pampanga. This is the famous one. Apolaki, the sun. Mayari, the moon. Both said to be children of Bathala. Their father dies and both want to rule alone. They fight with clubs, and Apolaki strikes Mayari in the eye, blinding her. In the end, they agree to share the sky by turns. And the moon is dimmer forever because of that wounded eye. Now, even here I have to flag something. In most Kapampangan cosmology, the supreme creator is not Bathala at all. It is Mahang Echai. So the moment you say children of Bathala, you are already blending a Tagalog creator into a Kapampangan story. That settled fact is not so settled. Second, the Tagalog version. When Tagalog tales tell a sun and moon quarrel, they usually do not use Apolaki and Mayari at all. They use H-Ro, the word for sun, and Buan, the word for moon. Common words turned into characters, and the ending is different. In the older Tagalog telling, Buan is a usurper who gets struck down, and her scattered body becomes the stars. There is no eye-blinding here. There is a star origin instead. Mayari, as a named Tagalog moon goddess, actually enters the record only in the 20th century through the scholar Hokahno. Third, Pangasinan. Here the sun and moon quarrel is a completely different story with completely different names. The sun is Agao and the moon is Bulan, and Bulan is male. They are sons of the creator Ama, also called Ahma Ga-Olai. The quarrel is over Bulan hurrying nightfall, and it ends when Agma hurls a rock that shatters the palace of Bulan, and the shards become the stars, the B2N. Same underlying idea across all 3. Why is the moon dimmer? Where did the stars come from? But the names, the genders, the weapons, and the endings all move. In Pampanga, a brother blinds his sister. In the Tagalog telling, a body is scattered into stars. In Pangasinan, a thrown rock shatters a palace. 3 peoples, 3 answers to the same wondering. The motif travels, the characters do not. Here is what I find beautiful about all this, though. Stripping away the fake ancient veneer does not leave us with nothing. It leaves us with something more honest. A real 16th century world of sun and moon reverence, a war god who wept at the cross in 1618, and a storytelling motif so human that it echoes from Luzon to India. That is not a smaller story, it is a truer one. But the spirits of these islands were not all sky and starlight. Some of them waited in the dark at the edge of the village, and colonizers found them far more useful as monsters than as gods. Next time, we go looking for the most feared shapeshifter in the Philippines. Next episode, the Aswang. So now, where does the famous sibling war actually come from? The earliest written version that makes Apolaki and Mayari brother and sister comes from Dean Fansler, an American folklore collector, in 1921. It is a Kapampangan tale, and Fansler credits a specific narrator, a man named Francisco Africa. That is the true textual root of the siblings' framing. And notice what that means. It is a tale collected in the 20th century from a living teller. It is not a pre-colonial text, and that dialogue you have read 100 times, the lines where Apolaki declares he is the man and he will take his father's throne, and Mayari refuses to be ruled. That specific wording comes from Maximo Ramos in his 1990 collection. That is the version copied all over the internet. It reads like scripture. It is a modern author's prose written in 1990. On this channel, we attribute it to Ramos, never to the ancients. As a rule of thumb, the more perfectly worded and the more widely copied a quote is, the more suspect it should be. So if the sibling war is not ancient, what is real? The best way to understand the eye-blinding story is not as history, but as etiology, a story built to explain something. Why is the moon dimmer than the sun? Because she was wounded. The scholar Rahman studied exactly this kind of tale in 1955, and he showed that sun and moon quarrels like this recur across the Philippines, across India, and down the Malay Peninsula. So the motif really is old and widespread, even in places where these particular named characters never existed. The urge to explain the dimmer moon is ancient. The names Apolaki and Mayari attached to it are not. Now here is the one genuinely early attestation, and it is the richest colonial story we have. And it is Pangasinan, not Tagalog or Kapampangan. In 1588, friars at Mahang Dan reported the worship of a mountain god called Apolaki, and in a Spanish report dated 1618, later reproduced by the Filipino scholar Asa Behlo de los Reyes, we get Apolaki lamenting the arrival of the Christians. In the report, he grieves over foreigners with white teeth and hooded heads who came with crossed poles to torment him. This is the earliest solid attestation of the name Apolaki anywhere. And notice, it is Apolaki as a Pangasinan war and mountain god, not the sun god brother of a moon goddess, a different figure entirely. And then the friars did something telling. They took the name Apolaki and repurposed it. They used it for the Christian god among their converts. You do not just tear down the old god, you pour the new one into his container, so the word people already trust now points somewhere else. So this deity was colonized twice, once by conquest and once by translation when his own name was handed to the god who replaced him. That, to me, is the sharpest colonial story in this whole episode. The genuinely old, genuinely documented Apolaki is a weeping war god in Pangasinan, not a sibling in a sky war. One more note on that name. It is tempting to call Apolaki the Filipino Apollo. Do not. The name is indigenous. Apo means lord or ancestor. Laki means male or great. The resemblance to Apollo is pure coincidence. So what happened over the centuries? The quiet colonial record, sun and moon revered, a war god weeping in Pangasinan, got picked up by 20th century collectors like Fansler, Bayer, Eugenio, and Ramos, and by systematizers like Hokahno. They gathered scattered oral etiologies and turned them into named gods with a family tree. And then, from the 2010s on, Filipino pride media took over. Comics, video games, tattoos, social media. Mayari got hardened into a goddess of war and revolution, a warrior with arnis fighting sticks. I need to be blunt, none of that has any basis in the early sources. Those are recent inventions. They may be meaningful to people today, and that is worth respecting. But they are not the old myth, and we will not cite them as one. And there is one more collision I have to clear up, because it fuels half the confusion online. In Zambales, among the Sambal people, there is a supreme deity of Mount Pinatubo named Mahlah Yah-Ri, sometimes Ahei Po Nah Mahal Yah-Ri. He is a creator and power deity. He is male, and people constantly merge him with Mah Yah-Ri, the moon goddess, because the names sound almost identical. Do not. They are different deities from different peoples of different genders. Mah Yah-Ri is a female moon figure in Kapampangan and Tagalog tellings. Mahlah Yah-Ri is a male supreme god of Pinatubo among the Sambal. The resemblance is a coincidence of sound, nothing more.